What up?
What up?
What up?
What up?
Not much.
What's up with you?
No, also not much. Hold on a second. So, yeah. What is even happening? What is the point of it all, guys? Like, we trying to get information out there? We trying to make friends, build a community, trying to get to the bottom of things? Trying to just waste time till the evening's up, till you're tired enough to go to sleep. Like what is it all for? Now I was looking, it's obviously been a second since my last stream. There seems to be just so many forces. Some of them regular forces. Some of them I do believe extra power, extra not terrestrial, but extra nonetheless. Some sort of divine power that just seems to keep me from doing something like this, right? Actually just opening my mouth and saying words into the ether. They're just that seems to be something that is just quickly coming to a close in this phase of human history. Things are just going to need to be a lot more polished, a lot more pre-screened, right? This whole just willy-nilly saying whatever you want on the internet, that is, yeah, I hate to say it, but it really just feels like it's a bygone era, this space, this whole YouTube thing, it just doesn't seem as robust, as alive as it once did. Even a couple months ago, the scare tactics and the shadow banning is all of the things that they've pulled together to funnel and circumvent everybody's mind towards things more mainstreamy, more polished, more, well, acceptable. It really does seem to be working, right? The algorithms around here on the YouTubes have really just been honed in, it seems like, right? I don't know what it's like for you, but when I go there to youtube.com and just look at my recommended videos, it's a shell of its former self, and it's obviously been quite some time that any sort of smaller, not actually already popular channel has sort of come across the recommended videos, or any sort of right, if you're not directly searching for something and you've had it directly recommended to you, there's no real way that you're going to get recommended anything anymore that isn't sort of in this pre-approved category, right? And it makes it obviously difficult to keep this whole thing going, because right, without the prospect of people stumbling across your videos, without the idea of just sort of attracting new followers just on the merit of your content, that just doesn't seem to be something that's really going down anymore. And it's pretty sad to see, because you recognize that there's a lot of creativity in humanity, a lot of creative minds out there, talented people. And it used to be the case that they were encouraged to create things wildly, without any sort of right, just whatever came to their minds. Obviously, some sort of requirements, some rules there, but mostly just whatever you thought might be entertaining to people. You were encouraged to just go out and make it, and that right? You're still allowed to do that. That's still definitely something that they're not really going to stop you and come to your house if you're doing something like this, like making a video. But at the same time, the encouragement seems to be gone, right? There's a lot of doom and gloom, a lot of just negativity now being spread instead. Adpocalypse, et cetera, all that kind of fun stuff. So, right, and yeah, it just makes it a little difficult to get yourself out there, to really put yourself out there, and also to put any sort of serious time into the stuff that you're doing, right? And me personally, I am well, I'm trying to actually somehow make a living here in this life, and right, they've made it blatantly clear, blatantly obvious that this is not really the way to a steady living anymore. That this platform, this idea of making videos at all on a regular basis and having that sort of be monetized, that's just not, unless you develop a an elaborate support network through Patreon or some other sort of fan based support system. But then again, if the algorithms are doing everything they possibly can to prevent your videos from being seen, if you're being shadow banned as soon as your account crosses a certain type of threshold, then well, chances are those communities are going to dry up, right? Without the active encouragement. Just want to say what's up here in the chat. What's up, guys? Good to see you. Nice. Um, Now it really is a special day. I don't know how you're feeling. I'm feeling totally fucking wrecked, exhausted, just drained. Sleeping for long hours and still waking up with a headache. There's seems to be something in the air, even outside of all the stressors built into to at least my everyday life. And it really is a special day, right? Two. We got quad twos. And if anybody out there has been watching this channel with any regularity, you know that the numbers are clues. They're a guide. It's a system that seems to be outside of the realm of any actual one person's control or understanding, but still seems to be built into whatever this matrix world that we're living in is. The numbers seem to pop up and show you the way, or be a guide in some form or another. And we also know that a lot of the fancy people, the powers that be, they love this number stuff. This is not even really just a hobby for them. It's more of a religion, really. These numbers have so much more power than I think even a lot of conspiratainment people are willing to admit. That right when a day comes up like this, and there's a lot of tie-ins here with the Super Bowl, a bunch of numerology all throughout there. But it's interesting, right, to see that this is the first palindrome day in a palindrome, 909 years, right? So there really is a lot of numbers sort of lining up to meet at this cross section right now. So, I mean, who knows what's actually happening today, if anything massively important other than the Super Bowl, some rituals, some obviously a lot of rituals I think would be focused on this day because, right, just the raw power of those aligning numbers. But whether we'll actually see or understand what those rituals actually accomplished or did, that's a whole nother question. I'm not sure about that. It might be a bridge too far. Now, obviously, there's just tons of news. It flies at you from every single possible angle. I've honestly taken a little step back from the daily grind because a lot of it honestly just does seem to be brain poison cancer with no actual redeeming value. Right? Obviously, you want to armor yourself up, be able to protect yourself from the propaganda. So it's always good to be able to translate things here. But at the same time, right? Even when you're protecting yourself, when you really have your full sort of discernment ready to go, you're still sucking down the material, right? And even if you have a strong protection, it's still going to affect you in subtle ways or even unsubtle ways, right? So just the simple act of picking up your phone and looking at an article from really any sort of publication, it's going to have a deep sort of emotional effect, a power over you that you can minimize, but I don't think completely can erase from any sort of interaction that you have with media. So I think it's good too every once in a while just to take a break, take a take some distance from this just relentless, seemingly to increase in speed news cycle that is just barreling over us. And all these themes, they just continue. Obviously, 5G, the virus, the terrorism, people dying. But whether it means something, or really, obviously, it's going to have an impact on your life just by you reading it. But whether that was a good impact or not, you can't even really assess until it's already too late, right? Until you've already actually consumed the media. And media consumption, I think, at least myself, and I'm sure a lot of other sort of American Western types, the media consumption it's not really it's not really considered like a good or a bad thing. It's like it just happens, and the media consumed is not really sometimes carefully selected. It just sort of flows over you as your day goes along, and it just may not be the right thing to be doing to your mind. But then again, life I guess needs to be filled somehow with some form of entertainment. I'm not going to be stopping watching television or reading articles anytime soon. It's just, I think, good to take a break every once in a while and see how that affects your brain chemistry, how you're different when you're not reading about stuff like this, right? But we should expect more interstellar objects this year. That really does seem to be the main theme, even more so than in previous years. That this idea of space and some grand shift coming, some big change coming. It really does seem to be the plan. Now, I just wanted to make sure I have this. Yeah, because this is what I wanted to look at really quick. Let me switch back here. Can we get a zoom in here? The Great Conjunction. The Great Conjunction is a conjunction of the planets Jupiter and Saturn. Great conjunctions occur regularly about every 20 years due to the combined effect of Jupiter's approximately 12-year orbital period and Saturn's 30-year orbital period. So a great conjunction is something, yeah, that happens about every 20 years. And the most recent one was here, 31 May of 2000. That was obviously a volatile time at the time, and things have only sort of gotten more volatile since then. Again, interesting with this, are very difficult to discern actual true history. These records only go back to the 1800s, which again, just in general, seems to be the scope of record keeping. That anything sort of pertaining to our actual modern society, writings, buildings, ideas, people, it's everything directly documented doesn't seem to go back much further than this. And these documentations of the conjunctions don't seem to be any different. I mean, somebody must have been keeping records of these, but according to Wikipedia, that's as far back as the records go. Right? And these will continue forward 2040, 2060, 2080. But we do have this one this year, right? The 21st of December. And it's like with all these things, it's hard to know when a date or a time or a number or something like this is mentioned, what exactly is happening. Is there going to be some grand event that happens at that exact time, right? At 1:22 on December 21st, or is that just going to be the start of a new cycle or the beginning of some new idea or event, right? Maybe that's what I was thinking, that maybe this was the start of the ritual that led up to 9/11, that was sort of the starting of the engine that led all the way up to that grand magical event that we all know and love. Right? Interesting to see these triple ones in that event. And again, it could all just be random. But the more I read and see, I don't know about you, the more I read and see, the less coincidental everything seems to be. And obviously, you got to still keep your discernment there, because you may end up confirmation biasing yourself into some silly thought or something maybe backwards or wrong. But at the same time, if you're not willing to appreciate connected events and is lining up for what they are, then, well, that's just going to be you might end up missing out at that point, right? So, not sure what to make of this, but I do I have started to think about, right, what is going to be the impact of this event, and what was the impact of these other previous events. And it's definitely interesting to think of, right, this documented portion of human history in these 20-year cycles, right? Because every 20 years, it definitely seemed to be something different going along. And this is just something I'm looking at here that does seem to be very interesting, actually, that normally they are happening every 20 years or so. We have them every 20 years. You know, it's not exact, obviously, because they're on a different celestial cycle. But back here in 1821, which is around this time when it appears something fishy was going on as far as human culture and some sort of, possible weird celestial event that happened. We have 1821 occurring 3 times, right? And this is June, November, and December, all at different angular distances, right? These are all different values. They're all in Aries. but that in 1921 that it actually, this great conjunction happened 3 times. There must have been, like, how was that even possible? There must have been something weird going on there. Or, right, these times, these dates are somehow misrepresented. That's, I don't know what else you could possibly think, right? Everywhere else it's happening 20 years, and then in this fishy area that everybody just keeps coming back to this time, right? Between 1800 and 1850 about just something weird. Something weird seems to be happening. And maybe, I don't know, maybe something weird always is happening. I like to think that, yeah, there's a lot stranger things going on than you could possibly know, than you're willing to admit to yourself. This I thought was super weird. This is a still from this really weird movie that Werner von Braun made about going to the moon. Full with just some terrible acting and awesome sort of old school rotoscope and his narration and this just this full on scenario spelling out basically the entire Apollo mission, how they would send stuff up to orbit and then uh, refuel and then travel back out to the moon, have sort of an orbiting vehicle drop people out. I think in this movie they're just orbiting it, getting ready to go down to the moon. But even, and I guess if we could zoom out just a tiny bit, does it say up there? Yeah, 1955. As you can see, 1955, this movie was made. So I guess really not that far out from the space race, but you can sort of see the whole playbook already laid out and planned out in this awesome movie. I would encourage you to find it. I'm right becoming extremely lazy when in regards to this channel, so you will have to find that link yourself. But what I found just definitely worth mentioning was right, if you watch this movie, you get to the end of the movie and they're looking down on the surface of the moon. They're like dropping flares, which are sort of light sourcing in an interesting way. Obviously this whole movie is fake because it's like an explainer sort of version, but it's interesting to compare this movie to other sort of future pictures and versions of depictions of the moon. But right, you get to the end of the video and you see, what do you expect? The aliens, they're already down there. They got a cities. Maybe this sort of looks like ruins. Maybe there was a past civilization that already made it up to the moon, and we're just getting there now, right? And this is sort of right 1995 propaganda space video, and they're definitely already seeding that idea quite some time ago. And I guess if you fast forward to now, it really is that's a lot of time that's gone by where they've been pushing this idea of extraterrestrials and aliens. I don't think it's very subtle in this movie, and here we are decades later. Yeah, the frequency only seems to have increased, and there just has to be some sort of agenda involved with the proliferation of the extraterrestrial. The same reason why there has to be something. There just has to be something with these hexagons, and the reason they just constantly show up in everything mildly high profile that you might run across in your media consumption experience. These are often things that aren't occurring in your regular life, right? This is obviously they can't use actual phone things in movies and TV because of like licensing copyright issues. So some graphic designer often has to make a fake UI, new UI to have stuff like this. And yeah, you can always get out of it. You can always say, well, maybe he just liked hexagons. He thought that was cool. That they just told the UI guy to just do whatever he wanted. Just give us some cool numbers. And he came up with hexagons on his own. Or there really is some sort of mandated, from top down, top level sort of set of mandates that if this is happening, that it has to be like this. If you have a cell phone, then you're going to need to use hexagons. Or maybe in a more subtle sort of word of mouth way where somebody like the producer or the director is the one that has to seed all of these ideas to the other people that are working on the project. And he nonchalantly mentions that it would be awesome if the numbers were hexagons. That would really come in handy just visually. And since it's coming from that director producer, there's no denying him or her, and then the hexagons get into the phone. A lot of explanations and just roundabout ways of trying to figure out why there's hexagons. But the fact of the matter is that they're there. They are there, and they show up all over the place. Pan, country, producer, it really doesn't matter. But if it is high profile enough, it will be sort of steeped in this imagery. This is a frame from Ad Astra that what's his name? Fight Club man, Mister, you know his name, Brad Pitt. That's the guy. Beautiful movie, but again with the hexagons and the flowing. This is a different sort of depiction of the hexagon, but I would argue that it's the same, right? This idea of you and the phone and communicating through it, this filter that it has to go through, and obviously in space you're going through a lot of different like sort of portals and just traveling, sort of floating through things, and to have that be the shape. Possible coincidence? Possibly not. Right? And I go back and forth with this kind of stuff as with everything. It's like, this is obviously a conscious choice. Something that they decided to do. They wanted to get those hexagons out there. These are some beautiful sort of nested hexagons. But a conscious choice nonetheless. This had to be made and done and approved. And I have way too many of these at this point. For me, it's already been proven, and that's the question, right? I picture this alternate community where the alternate reality where this community was allowed to thrive and grow, right? And this is something that we all got together and sort of got to the bottom of, that tracking these symbols and their frequency, who uses them in what context, the symbolism, that we would sort of develop a common understanding of what these all mean and sort of tease them out. But I can see why that would be highly discouraged, because this is the last sort of possible communication device that they have. And it has just obviously such wildly powerful subconscious effects that there's a huge vested interest in this not getting pulled apart and this not being understood properly. Because they wouldn't put it in everything all the time, everywhere, nonstop, if it wasn't so effective, if it didn't have such innate power. And we could really just run through so many different shows, different concepts. And I mean, honestly, I wish this all was a little more monetized, because this seems like it would be fun research to be doing all day. But as it stands, at best, it's just going to get shoved into the corner, be done as an afterthought, be but it still seems like, I always come back to that fact that somebody should be out there talking about this stuff in a non inflammatory tone, right? Just sort of looking at the images and sort of trying to tease them apart, not just always pushing some inflammatory button. And I don't know if it's me, I don't know if it's somebody else, but it still seems like something that needs to be said. And maybe it's just not that important. Maybe there's, not a huge market for this type of content, but the other side of that coin is that it's actually maybe super important. And something to get out in the world, to discuss with your friends. Let people know about the hexagons. So yeah, that's at least that was show. We got past 33 minutes. It's hard to say. It's hard for me to say how I'm going to keep this whole thing going. There's just, yeah, a lot of energy that I have to put into other things, and I guess that's what a lot of people are being made to consider these days. What are you doing with your time? Is it something that's building towards the future? Is it something that you're going to be able to sustain yourself with, 5 years, 10 years from now? And I think that's been pushed out very hard. If you have anything to do with the truth community, it's getting shadow banned, it's getting pushed out of the main sphere. And if you already have sort of a well-established account and a big following and people paying attention to what you're saying, then you obviously will be allowed to continue in some sort of reduced faction. But if this is a subject that you're just trying to get your channel started here in 2020 in the truth community, it is basically they've almost got it all locked down at this point. If you don't already have sort of a large network and a way of reaching a bunch of people through your own means, the idea of just sort of starting from scratch, I don't know. Is it over? Is that it for the truth community, for the evolution of it at least? I'd like to hear what you think about this, and about whatever else you'd like to talk about in the comments. If in fact you are a real person and not a bot or some sort of shadow ban entertainment system, because if you are one of those things, yeah, I guess you should probably keep your comment to yourself. I don't know how that works actually with these chatbots and that kind of stuff. Like, how did they decide to leave a comment, and how is that content decided then for the chatbot? Like, do they all just say like, "Great topic, I like your videos"? What's the chatbot form? What is the shadow ban formula? I guess questions for another time.
I'm gonna get out of here. Guys. It's been real. That's the end of that stream. The stream is over. The stream is over now, and take it easy. Take it easy, I say.